excellent.
I once saw an ad that said, "Wedding dress for sale, only worn once by mistake." Marriage is hard work. Divorce rates are lower than ever before, but that's because fewer people are getting married than ever before. And of the ones who are, they're waiting far longer to begin their marriage journey. Marriage is a lot of hard work, but today we're discussing the business of being married and how to put in the hard work. Welcome to the Mind Your Business podcast, the podcast for whatever business is on your mind. Let's get started.
Well, that's excellent.
Welcome to a special episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. Today, I'm excited to welcome our very first guest, Jen Matthews. Jen is my wife and my very best friend, but even more than that. She's a successful entrepreneur working as a professional makeup artist for over a decade, providing services for film, television, print, online media, and everything in between. She has a clothing brand called More Lifestyle Co. She's a branding expert working with national brands, helping them with graphic design, brand management and design, facility and interior design, and other marketing elements. She's a musician, she's a singer, she's a public speaker, she's a podcaster hosting the She Grows podcast that helped to equip and empower women. She leads an entire women's movement called She. She helped launch and lead the organization that we oversee together. She's a wife, she's a mom, she's an amazing individual full of so many incredible things. And I'm so excited for you to meet Jen. Jen, I'm so glad that you're part of the podcast today.
I'm so excited to be here. So honored to be the first one. I feel like it's just all is right in the world for that.
Well, I certainly wanted you to be the first one because I have already said it on this podcast, and I think everyone knows. But part of the reason that this podcast exists is because of you. You've pushed me to do this when I said that I was not going to do it. So we're here, and I certainly wanted you to be a part of the very first guest episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. Today, I'm excited because we are talking about the business of marriage and the hard work that it takes to be married. And today we're going to share six elements or six characteristics, principles of our marriage that's helped keep us successful. And so, but before we dive into that, let's just give everybody a little background on our relationship, a little bit of how we got started and how we came to be. So just share a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, this year is actually going to be our 16th wedding anniversary, which seems so crazy because it feels like you've always been a part of my life, and it also feels like it's gone by in a flash. We started our relationship in probably an unusual kind of way. We met and became really fast friends. Like, we were just both not interested in a relationship with anyone at the time. So I guess because of that, we just kind of were raw and just got to the nuts and bolts of everything right off the bat. Either way, it birthed this friendship that went really deep, really fast. And we were married within 6 months of meeting, which is so unusual. And I would say that is crazy, but here we are nearly 16 years later. And so it worked.
Well, and people that know me especially, and I think probably people who listen to the podcast would probably be able to tell that my personality is a little more calculated. I tend to want to plan. I want to be able to put A, B, C, and D together. A part of the podcast, we always have principles. We're very clear on some barriers and then some of our breakthroughs. But in the saying goes, when you know, you know. And I think that's very true. That has been very true for us. And so nearly 16 years in, I think today I enjoy our marriage more than I did even in the beginning. Would you say the same thing?
Oh, yeah. Because, Lord, we barely knew each other. We knew each other well enough, apparently. But yeah, I just get to know you more and more every day, and we become better friends. And I enjoy it more every day.
So, a part of our marriage and some of the things that I think have helped bring us success, and I want to talk about this today because I know that there are a lot of principles that we apply in our own personal marriage that I think is beneficial to both our personal relationships and our professional relationships. And so, some of the things that we've been able to do that have brought us success, I think, are transferable. And so, what I really want to do today is we have this discussion. I want to encourage all of you who are listening or all of you who are watching, number one, to really reflect on some of the principles that we're going to share. Think about these in terms of how you could apply these to your personal relationships right now and how you could transfer these over to your professional relationships in your professional environment. So, one of the principles that you and I really hold tightly to is communication in our relationship. I think communication is foundational to any relationship that you have, regardless if that is personal or if it is a professional relationship. In our marriage of nearly 16 years and a lot of different things that we've done, I told everyone up front all the things that you're involved in your life and all the things that you have going on. I have a lot going on our side. We do have an 8-year-old son. So there's a lot that we manage and there's a lot going on, like most people in their professional environments and their personal environments. So can you just talk a little bit about communication and the importance of that and how you think we've been able to maintain really good communication in our marriage?
Yeah, it's absolutely one of the top tier things in a relationship, in any relationship, is going to be communication. And I think first and foremost, to be able to keep good communication this long is that we've both had to come to a place to realize that the good of the both is just better than the good of either one alone. And so we process things very differently. And we've both had to kind of find this meet in the middle place with that so that there are no letdowns, there's no aggravations with that. Because I know if we get in a disagreement, which fortunately over the course of our marriage, there's only been a handful of times that we had a real frustrating disagreement. And nothing is right in the world until it is mended and fine, but you want some time to process. And so that was really hard for me. And, over time we've had to kind of let each other suffer for a minute to get it figured out.
Sure.
But,
and I can remember the first hard lesson that we've learned in that because
Yep.
part of communication and learning to communicate is learning to resolve conflicts and disagreements and the things that we have. And so you don't really learn some of these things until you just go through it, until you experience
Right.
it. And I'll never forget, we were newly married. I don't know if you can remember this or not. You probably will, but I don't remember the disagreement, but I know there was some sort of disagreement. And I am a night owl anyway. I remember sitting downstairs on the couch. You went to bed, and I remember in my mind, and this sounded really good at the moment, I said, I'm just going to let her go upstairs and I'm going to let her sleep it off, and she will be fine in the morning. And so I slept on the couch, and I remember the next morning going up the stairs, walking into the bedroom, and there you were laying in the bed, and I could tell you had not slept at all. And it was almost like this scene from The Exorcist where the head just shifts and twists around on the body. There you sat, and I knew that I had made a gigantic mistake by not communicating. And so it is, we all have a different form of communication, and especially in conflict resolution. So how do you think we've dealt with the process of resolving conflicts and disagreements in our marriage?
Yeah, I think ultimately we, again, just are for each other, and we kind of know that. And, there were moments like that situation you're talking about. I definitely remember that. And I remember thinking, it's not fair that I have to be the one to not resolve things the way I want to, and he gets to just sit over there and stew on, like, just give space and let it go away. Like, I remember thinking, it's not fair that I'm the only one who has to suffer. So, but over time, it was this natural. You're right, that was early in our marriage, and so you don't know till you walk through it. And so over time, we've learned, okay, well, you got to come to me a little faster than you might want to. And I've got to allow you some space. And while it is frustrating for both of us, I think, because I don't feel like you like to talk these things back out while it's still got a little heat to it. But you've learned to do that anyways, to work through some of it. And I've learned to let it sit. And until you are ready to bring it up. And I think that we're able to both do those things because we understand that it's for the good of the relationship, and that's got to trump any individual I'm right, you're wrong, any defense mechanisms we would have naturally. The good of the relationship has to trump that.
Sure. Well, and I think part of that is in those learning experiences of me learning that about you. You don't know what you don't know, and the trick is as you learn to communicate, is finding certain ways that you serve the other person. So now that I know that you need to handle it instantly, that you want to take care of it right then, but what I knew about myself was that for me to be able to process in a way that served you, that sometimes I need just a little moment to process it for myself and to cool down or to collect myself before I can serve you. But communication is important because it's communication that really breeds connection. I think a lot of people, they lose their connection over the life of their marriage simply because the communication wasn't healthy. And they never learned, or they forgot how to communicate together, which is the same thing in our professional environments as well. People don't know how to communicate with other people. And so as on a team, when there's conflict, because we don't know their personalities and we don't take the time to really invest in the people that's around us, it just breeds disconnection when you have a lack of communication rather than communication and then connection. Unmet expectations are usually always because of unspoken expectations. And so would you say that you and I have really learned maybe over the years to better communicate our expectations of what we want for each other?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely think so, which is why I think we can say we've only gotten into a handful of disagreements. We might have a weird little bickery day where it's usually miscommunicating, but in general, I think that's why we stay on the same page, because we've learned how to do everything for the good of each other. So we kind of over communicate we communicate immediately as opposed to ever letting it escalate in the first place.
I like that. I like that you said over communicate, because I think over communication is way better than a lack of communication. And actually, employees say in their organizations, the number one complaint that they have about their job that keeps them from feeling empowered or able to excel or exceed or advance is just they don't know what to do. They don't feel like they're clearly communicated with, so they know how to do what it is that maybe they were hired or put in place to do. So I love what you said about over communicate, and I think we do that well. Part of the communication, Jen, especially in 16 years of marriage, and to really be able to say, I hope you can say, as I am, that it's better today than it was nearly 16 years ago.
Oh yeah.
So part of that, I think, has been keeping the spark alive. A spark, it ignites something in you. It's like when you first get hired on at your job and you show up in the parking lot early and you can't wait to go in, and you stay a little late and you're putting in the extra effort and the extra work. There's a spark there that's just pushing you forward. How do you think we've been able to do that in our marriage in terms of communication, breeding the connection to keep that spark alive?
We've always been very intentional about being friends first, before we're parents, before we're pastors, before we're business people, before we're mentors, before we're anything else. You and I are friends. And because of that priority, it influences a lot of the decisions we make, to where we spend intentional time with each other. And when that's the goal, I know I don't come second place to anything, and you've made that very clear throughout our marriage. And I find a lot of comfort in that, knowing that you've always told me if there's a job that is taking up too much time, if there's a relationship, if there's a hobby, whatever, I'll put it down. Even the things you do for fun. You're like, am I doing this too much? I don't want to do it more because I don't want to take away time. But because it's always that's been first and foremost, it brings value to me, and I can rest in knowing that, hey, I'm still really important to him. And I think that's been, because the more you can trust, the more you can relax in a relationship, the more fun it just is.
Yeah, that's true. And I would agree with that as well. And I do. I think it is prioritizing. And the reason you know that is because I verbally communicated that and then
Yeah.
actions back that up. When I think about that in my regard for our relationship and the spark, early on in a relationship, you do extra things to try to win the person over. And then I will hear some people say sometimes, I don't have to do that anymore. I've already got them. We're married or whatever the case is. And it is awful to say that. But I think that's applied even in the business realm as well, in the marketplace, because
Yeah.
we'll do a lot of extra to win the job and to get them
Yeah.
to pick us, to hire us. An employer would do that to try to convince the applicant to, apply and to want to stick it out and to be hired and to do the job and to be there. And then over time, you lose some of those things, which ultimately loses the spark. And so I think in our marriage, you have always done such a good job at not only continually communicating the things that you did early on, but also to actually follow that up with action. And so the communication has always been so incredibly strong in that way. And ultimately, because of that, communication has bred the connection that we have in our life. So communication
Yeah.
is so important in any role, any job, any marketplace, any relationship that we have, either personal or professional. Another thing that I want to talk about that I think we've done well in our marriage, in our relationship, and over time as we've built it, is we've put roles and responsibilities in
Yeah.
our relationship. Some of the tiny things that people get frustrated about, when you hear people complain about their spouse or about their marriage or about their job, sometimes it's just tiny little details that don't really matter. I say it's always the little things that cause the spark, that just light the fuse, and then eventually just causes it to explode. And so you and I have communicated well in such a way that we could avoid some of those things. So
Mhm.
how do you think we've been able to navigate just some of the maybe the complex or the simple things in our marriage, the roles and responsibilities that we carry together in our marriage?
Most of it we kind of fell into naturally. So we're and this absolutely applies to a business standpoint as well, but like where your natural giftings are, you just kind of if you your strengths are apparent there and you kind of fall into those, and we did that together. You're a much better adult than I am. You're much better at doing the responsible things. You're why we have health insurance and a paid mortgage, things like that. And I'm better at like I love the I'm gonna call it hospitality side. I love taking care of you and Asher, our son. I love making sure that you have plenty of food to eat. I love making sure knowing that your clothes are ironed and ready to go, and taking care of the house and stuff like that. And so most of it we just kind of fell into our natural roles. Even with parenting, we have, because we communicate so well, that's not even been a stumbling block for our just kind of natural rhythms. We kind of fall in where each other needs help and kind of even tag team there. And all of this sounds like, oh, well, what an anomaly. Everything's just easy for you guys. But it's only because we made a decision really early on to be for each other. And it all just kind of points to the health of the relationship as to ever going, well, I don't want to do that, or why didn't you do that? And well, it goes back to what you said earlier about unmet expectations being unspoken expectations, and the communication has cleared all that up for us.
Yeah, and I think too, just what you said, the communication cleared a lot of that up. We've been able to talk about some of those things, and the more that I have communicated with you and you communicate with me, the stronger the connection is. We talked about that, obviously. So the stronger the connection is means I know more about you. I know
Yeah.
the things that you enjoy. I know the things that you do not enjoy. I know the things you're good at. I know the things you're just a little less not good at because you're
You
good
can
at
say
most
that. It's
things.
fine.
But in the same way, you know all those things about me as well. So when it comes
Mhm.
down to just the everyday, mundane, small things, like even household stuff, there's things that you don't mind doing and I don't like. So naturally, that kind of just became your role, and vice versa. And then the things that we don't like at all, either one of us, we end up doing together.
Yeah.
Down to raising our son, our schedules. We don't have tension in the roles and responsibilities we have with him, because we communicate, we're connected, and we have that mutual respect for each other. So, we take into consideration the other schedule or the other priorities that you may have. And so I think that goes back to really clearly defining through communication. Do you think that some people get frustrated in professional settings or even in our relationships when it just gets muddy, or when you think, I've been given a role or responsibility, but everything is pushing me out of that realm, or I don't even know really what my role or my responsibility is? Do you think that happens a lot, and that's what causes some of the tension in our relationships?
100%. 100%. I feel like, and I feel like it's on both sides of the coin, because I've been guilty of not be giving clear enough instructions to someone I needed to do a job to, but I've also known I've given clear instructions and then not had questions asked. So it's both sides. It's communicate as best as you possibly can, but then on the other side of it, like if you're the employee, ask the questions. Well, that's what we have to do all the time. Specifically, I love to give vague information, and you want to know that it's really going to happen. And so if I give you my information, you're like, no, but for real, what time? What does it look like? What are we bringing? And it's got to be both sides. And that's where I think it fails a lot. Well, in relationships and in the business world.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think like some of those early communication lessons that were learned the hard way, we've done this as well, just in trying to, fill out the roles and responsibilities that we both have. So I know there's been challenges in balancing our careers, the household duties, the personal time, things that you like to do, and things that are, that we go in different directions. So how do you think that just in the big scheme of life, in the big picture, being able to define some of those roles and responsibilities, the things that we share, how do you think that's helped to manage or control some of the chaos that life can be sometimes? In a fast-paced environment, life is fast-paced, family is fast-paced, the work environment is fast-paced. There's always something going on that wants to take your time. So how do you manage some of that in just navigating within the roles and responsibilities, the things that help keep it clear and in order?
A couple things. One is that when you've had clear communication over time, it builds trust. And when trust is there, when you are watching each other for these chaotic seasons in life, it is easier to receive correction or questions about what's going on when I know that you're coming from a good place. If things are, there's definitely, I love to work. I would work all day and all night if I could, just because I enjoy what I do. But there was a time where you would have to consistently be like, Jen, do you really need to do this right now? Like, do you think you'll still have that work to do tomorrow? Like, can we put the computer down? And I finally had to be like, oh, wait, I enjoy this. So I don't feel like a workaholic, but I am, and it's hurting my family because I'm not here with them. And so because I knew you were coming from a healthy place, because we had already built that trust, it was much easier. Hard on like it took me a while. It's not like I responded instantly, but it was easier to receive that and change that because I knew you were correcting me or keeping me just checks and balances out of a healthy place. And I think it's important to watch each other and be aware, because you could naturally, since you're in it together as a partnership, when things get crazy, it's crazy for both sides, even if it's coming from one situation. And so it's got to be very intentional to keep your mindset on, but why? Why do things not feel right now? Ask the questions. And then when you can tell that, hey, this is not just a weird season. There's always going to be seasons that are crazy or hectic, but you can get through that if you know it's got a stopping point. But when you go, this is a pattern and it's not stopping, like Jen's always got her computer at dinner time. She's always that's when it's time to go, okay, let's really talk this out. And, I think it all comes from trust and that's built on communication.
Yeah, and that's good. And so in just managing some of that, when you think about, communicating clearly, defining those roles and responsibilities, kind of observing when life is getting hectic and crazy, kind of locking yourself back into the roles. Now, the third thing that I want to talk about, one of the principles that I think help us, has been our shared values and goals. having values that we share for our life and our marriage, and then goals that we walk in together that we're both aiming for, I think helps in this as well. It helps us keep our roles sort of aligned based on what we've communicated and shared for our vision and our values for our life. I think every organization would have a mission statement, values, and a purpose statement. We have mission, vision, and values. And in the vision statement, mission statement, value statement, it all defines who you are, where you want to go, and the core principles and values that keep you in alignment in order to get there. And so, as you and I have built our life, and as we've continually grown together over 16 years, we've always communicated, connected around these shared vision, values, and goals. And I think our roles and responsibilities always help reinforce those things together. So I guess my question is for you, or what are some of those that we share? I think people think about this in a professional environment, that statement that's on the paper, maybe on the wall in the office. It may just be a statement for somebody, or something on the wall in the office. It may not be at their core. But how do our vision, our goals, our values, how do they help our marriage, and how do they keep us in alignment?
They influence everything we do, from our entertainment to the way we spend our time to the way we teach our child to jobs we take, projects we take on, making sure that those kinds of things are in alignment, and I think it's saved many arguments. It's saved many fights or disasters because we are always looking back to that same, okay, but is this building up? Ultimately, we want to see our legacy. We want to be able to look back on our life and go, well, we gave everything we had to make sure that other people were better, that other people grew, and we just dying empty is kind of a goal of ours. And so
tell that. So you talked about dying empty. Give some specifics, if you can, of what you think are some of the specific core values that we have in our relationship. What would you say are some of the main pillars that you and I would stand on together?
Well, first is God. We want to make sure that everything we do points to God. That's the top tier value of ours. And second under that's going to be family. So everything we do, like I said, from a job to a project to entertainment, everything is going to come down to, does this point people back to Jesus? And does it support our family? So there's times where things are taking too much time, and it might be a really great thing that you have to say no to, but it's like, you know what? I really value time with my family. So I'm going to say no to a good thing because I would rather say yes to a really great thing. And so honestly, when those two things are in line and healthy, every other thing feels healthy. And so that supports the end is just doing life well. And so by the end, we want to be old and crinkly and look back and go, oh yeah, we did this good and we gave all we had to give. And
that's great, because that really is a very specific, it's a very specific example, because one of the values of our life is our family. Most people, or a lot of people, get to the end of their life, and the one thing they wish they could go back and do is spend more time with their family. They wish they could get those moments back. It usually is never, I wish I made more money, or I'd gotten that promotion, or I had achieved this success. But it's like, man, I've worked so hard all these years. Where did this life go? And then you look around and the people that you love, they're no longer there because you abandoned them a long time ago. Because you made a point and you made this statement, and I think it's so true, that there are good things that come along. And it's not that it was a bad thing that took up your time or your energy, but it didn't align itself with the value or the goal of family. So is it pushing the family forward? Is it going to take you and I both in the same direction? And so wouldn't you think it's fair to say that a lot of the decisions we make, maybe they would be good for one of us, or, they would be good in the moment, but as we look down the road to the future, we would be able to determine that it wasn't going to get both of us to where we wanted to go as the end result. So with that, can you give us an example maybe of any time in our marriage? Because here's the trick, here's the challenge. it is a balance between, because you're a hardworking person, you're driven, you're full of purpose, and so you're an achiever, and so you've got things that you want to achieve, and sometimes they're different gifts or skill sets than I have. So the challenge is balancing the tension between your personal goals that maybe don't ultimately align with our family, and so we have to be able to pick and choose what those are. And sometimes that's
Mhm.
been complicated. Talk about some of the moments maybe in our marriage where we've had to walk through some of that.
There's been a few different times, but one that really sticks out to me, but it was probably the most challenging, was a job I had taken with a company that I just adore. I love the people involved. I love what they're doing. I love what I was going to get to do for them, or what I did do for them. And so I took this job, was so excited about it, but it kept me traveling a lot. So Asher was really young and I was gone from home a lot. And then on top of that, the workload was insane. So I was on the computer all day, all night. And you'd be like, well, you're never even home. And I was like, I'm home a lot. You're like, no, you're not here. You're not here at all. And besides that, it was the first time that I had really worked with a lot of people that weren't in our same circle of people. Like, you didn't know the people I was working with, and I was gone all the, like, it was just very out of our element. And aside from that, we knew our purpose was pastoring and mentoring in this type of avenue like we're doing. And so it was the most foreign thing we had ever done. And it really caused a lot of stress and tension in us. And you did trust me for a long time to be, she's going to do what she's called to do. She's going to make the right decision, or this is going to work out, or whatever. But finally it came to okay, this is not a season, this is a pattern. And so let's talk this out. And ultimately the hard decision was to leave the job. And it was the right decision. Like, things healed immediately.
Yeah, that's a great point. You said something there that I really want to lean into. You said you could determine that it was not just a season, but it was a pattern. And I think because we had defined the goals of our life so well, when something really great presented itself, and I remember obviously this season because it was probably the toughest season ever of our marriage, and it was such a great opportunity for you. It was a great opportunity for our family. There were so many positives involved in what you were doing at the time, and doing some incredible work that was on a very large scale, and just an exciting moment for you. I was so proud of you. But when we stopped to go, you know what, the reality is this is really not lending itself to our greatest passion, and that was our family.
Yeah.
And most people, if I have to be honest, Jen, most people would not have made the decision that you made.
Yeah.
Most people would have chosen the opportunity and said, hey, this, they would have called the other person maybe selfish, or trying to take away that opportunity. But you knew our goal and our
Yeah.
commitment to each other, because we'd communicated so well. We had such a connection, and because we had shared roles and responsibilities, vision and values, it really was an alignment. And I know,
Yeah.
even for me personally, because Asher's so young, there's been a lot of opportunities that I would have liked to have experienced. But the reality is, they require you to be gone and to be away. And right now, for the time being, my son wants me around, and in a few years, he probably won't want that. And so I would rather be around and be a dad right now. And so,
Yeah.
taking some of these other things, I would miss time with him. And just to be honest, that's my goal. That's the vision of my life, is my family. So I want to protect that, and I want to serve that. So I think shared values, goals is what keeps you in alignment. You said being able to determine a season versus a pattern. A season is something that you can get through. A season is
Yeah.
something you can look on the calendar and go, hey, this is going to be a busy 6 weeks, but once we get past this, everything is going to come back to normal. But then a pattern goes, in 6 weeks, we're going to overcome this, and then we're going to get back to normal. And at the end of 6 weeks, it's then 12 more weeks, and then we'll get to normal, and it becomes something that is just a pattern. And if it is detracting from your ultimate goal of your life, then it's not worth the risk. So
Yeah.
I would say this both personally, professionally, where you are, learn to discern some of the patterns and seasons that you're walking in and try to determine if this is something that's literally leaning you or leading you to the vision and value of your life where you hope to end up. Because here's the reality. Most people don't plan to end up in the wrong destination of life. But
Yeah.
most people also don't plan to end up at the right destination either. And having a vision and having values for your life will help get you there. So I love that,
Yeah.
Jen. Part of that journey that we've been on, though, and some of that is both challenges and growth that you and I have both had. Because in all of this, there has been challenging moments, but it has led us to growth. So let me
Hmm.
ask you this question. I want to talk about that because I think that's an important part of this. Share maybe some maybe like even in that season, that was a challenge for us in that. How do you think we've been able to individually grow, and then as a couple throughout our marriage through some of these challenges? So, for example, that was a challenging season. You learned
Yeah.
some lessons. I learned some lessons. We've learned some lessons together. How can people take whatever experience they're in right now and gain a personal lesson from the challenge that they're in so that they can grow from it? Yeah. Well, and you know what? Because watching you over 16 years of marriage, nearly 16 years, every time I can think about a difficult season or something that you and I have encountered together, we've gone through together, whether it's something that just was more aimed at your personal struggle, my personal struggle, or something that affected both of us in the exact same way, is that I've always watched you grow from it. You've always gotten better. And so I think in the next challenge that comes, I have confidence in knowing that whatever it is, you're going to make the most of it. I'm going to see you, regardless of how you may find your way through it, you're going to be better on the other side of it. So I have a lot of confidence
Yeah.
when they come. So I don't panic every time there is some sort of challenge that we find in our marriage. And I think that goes back to our level of commitment to each other, the connection we have, and
Yeah.
sharing those goals and those values together. I think sometimes in our jobs, we have at least in a culture right now, we have people who are leaving the marketplace. We have people who are quiet quitting, doing the bare minimum. We spend a third of our life working and we're all miserable. We hate what we do. And so I think a lot of people are in situations that they're in and they're not making the most of it. They stay where they are. They have resolved to themselves that this is life and it's not going to be any better. And it's almost like they just surrender to it instead of growing through it. What would you say to somebody who may be sitting in that situation and they've just given up and they're refusing to grow? What would you say to somebody to go, hey, get it together, learn from what you're going through, and grow?
I would say exactly that. Wake up. Like it's the person I want to shake. Because so many times, usually when you're in that state, you are just full of blame. It is everyone else's fault. It is everyone else's. But taking personal accountability for where you are is usually step one, because it's not just your boss's fault if you didn't get the promotion. It's not just your coworker's fault if, you didn't get credit on a project. It's not just any of that. The same way, if we have a hard season, it's not just your fault. I can't blame it all on you. That's just never the case. And so I would say, wake up, realize your position in it all, and then ask some questions, because probably communication stopped a long time ago. And there's a lot of questions that need to be asked to clarify where exactly you really are right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think you're right about that. People tend to give up when they don't feel like they are moving to anything that's purposeful, or they're not communicated with. They don't have that leadership and that guidance. Which really, the next thing I want to mention about our relationship that I think is real beneficial, especially when we have challenges and we have growth. I want to talk about the support and the partnership that we both have in supporting each other and partnering together. I know that I have your support. I know that no matter what happens, that you've got my back. So how do you think, just in navigating challenges, my own personal desires for my ambitions and my growth, and for yours, how do you think we've been able to help each other and support each other in our growth, in our desires, and things that we want to achieve? Just going, hey, we're doing life together. It's not just about me anymore. It's about us. So how do we support each other?
Well, because we have a track record of making sure our values stay number one, I think I've been able to trust that anything you put your mind to, anything you start to do, that it's going to align. And we have learned to kind of interpret the rhythms of each other in health and unhealth, and kind of is keeping that check and balances. But in general, I know that you're going to respect me. I know that you're going to respect our family, and I know that the main thing is still going to be the main thing. And honestly, the more time goes on, and you zoom in on our life and you zoom out and you take this journey, you take that journey, details change and maybe even avenues change, but the ultimate goals have never changed, and that alignment stays there. And I think it's because, not to beat a dead horse, but communication. You just have to keep it in front of each other, because the less spoken it is, then it can fade into the distance. But when it's truly your heartbeat, then it's every little thing that pops up, all the new interesting things are still going to align.
Yeah. And I love that, the alignment of it. You said, again, because we're so together on our goals, our values, and where we want to go. That tells me that it's easy to support you, because I know every goal or ambition or desire that you have, it's all aligned, and it's governed by our values, and it's pushing us in the same direction. So it's very easy to support you. I think, part of that supporting each other is finding ways to prioritize the partnership that we have, even in the midst of everything that we have going on in life. And for example, I would say, in support and helping align our lives, just doing this podcast, you knew something that was deep in me, and you helped pull that out to get me to take a decision to do this. But then at the same part of that, because this is something that maybe that I'm doing over here that you were supporting me in, because I want our lives to align on everything, family and our relationship. That's why it was so important for me for you to be a part of this podcast. I wanted our worlds to collide here, to meet where we are, because I don't want this to be just something I'm doing over here and you're supporting me over there, but you have immense value that you add to this, the principles that you bring to our marriage that we can share, that applies to people's professional and personal development. So this was a great opportunity to merge those. And it's through support. You're doing this because you're supporting me. And by having you here, I want to support you, because I think we're both growing and building together. Do you think there's other ways that have been impactful for you, that have helped to support, maybe ways that I have found to support you? Maybe I don't even know that I'm doing it, but maybe that you find to be supported?
Absolutely, because one example is when we started a women's ministry. I think you don't even know how the little details Obviously, it's for women. So you finding a place in there was a little different. But the way that you would show up and how can I take care of you? What can I do? What can I do? Yes, I'll be there. Yes, I'll do. Where do you want me to serve? What do you? It was like, because I so look up to you in the communication world. In the pastoral world, like you're just so well spoken. You're so like you're a role model for me there. And so for you to feed in even the little details, I felt like I could conquer the world, even down to something as silly as the hats I make. You were like, find one I'll wear because I don't wear that crap. Like, find a hat I'll wear and I'll wear it. And I mean, so even down to the smallest things, I mean, that's insignificant. It's a hobby, but then something that's my purpose. You found a way to, and it's the little things. It's really not like you wrote my message or something. You know, it's like, can I move the table for you? Can I get you a cough drop? Like, but it was just the world because I had your support.
Well, and I think you said it's the unspoken, unknown, the little things. Isn't it usually the little things that mean the most anyway? I think that's why sometimes in a place of employment, you hear people go, we think sometimes that people want to take another job because it's got a better title or it's more money. But a lot of people respond and say, you know what, if where I was had more fun, if I was valued more, if the company culture was better, I would take this over more money. Because it is sometimes just some of the small things to know that you're in a good place, that you are supported, and that someone's got your back. And so I think the support that we have, the partnership that we carry really makes the difference in achieving all the things that we've talked about prior to this. The last thing that I'll mention in some of the things that we had, some of the principles that I wanted to share is memorable moments and traditions that maybe you and I share. And I say this because these are things that you find joy. These are things that that you just appreciate about the relationship that you're in. It's the things that you share together, those little special moments. And a lot of people in their relationships, in their professional lives, they've forgotten those just little nice moments that just bring you joy. And I'm hoping that maybe by just sharing a few, that it may spark some of that in someone who's watching or listening. So do you have any just favorite memories when you think about us that maybe just come to mind that bring you joy?
Yeah, there's a lot. Obviously, it's years and years worth, but one that always makes me laugh, and I think it's because it's the beginning, and so it's just extra special. But when we got married, we went on our honeymoon in Highland, North Carolina. It was in December, so it was really cold. And we still barely knew each other. We had only met 6 months ago. And so anyways, we go to this little place to hike, and neither one of us are hikers. So that's funny anyways, but we like discovering new things together. And we hiked down a mountain so we could see this waterfall. Well, by the time we get to the bottom, it's getting dark. And like I said, it's freezing cold. And so on our way back up, it's just a mile, but a mile up a mountain in the dark when you're freezing. We didn't know till we talked about it later, but we were both on the verge of giving up and literally dying that night because we just couldn't do it. And so to keep our mouth shut and just keep trucking along, when I was like, it'd be fine. If I was an ice ball right there, I at least married my best friend and then I died there on our honeymoon. Like, I had already made peace with it. But so that was just funny to me because we both just pushed through for the good of the other one. Like, I can't die on him today. And so that's just always makes me laugh.
Well, and you think back, you go, wow, that was a long time ago, but it's still such a fond memory today because we have that funny moment can be reflected in so many other moments in our life. Yeah. I think if you think about it, we can see, the other things that we've done that I think that we haven't lost that fun, that enjoyment of our relationship together. I think about a lot of the times that we spent early on when we first met, because we met and married so fast and, met in May and then we were married by December. And I can think about, the times that we would just spend sitting in a car, just talking about everything, anything, and everything. And I think about that so fondly because it has helped shape the relationship that we have today. Much of the
Yeah.
things that we started in talking about communications and all those things actually sparked, where we are today. So thinking back, it brings me joy. Somebody needs to
Yeah.
think back about why they started the job, why they, accepted the offer, why all these things that they did, why they got in the relationship to begin with. It's really good to stop and to think back. What about today?
Yeah.
Any special little things that we do today that are current, that happen, that bring you joy, that maybe one day will be a memory of something that we both enjoy doing?
Well, honestly, we're both, and I'm so glad we're on the same wavelength with stuff like this, but we are both so simple. We are homebodies, and we just love a quiet moment where we can wind down together. So I think anytime I even hear the words King of Queens, I get excited because I think about our downtime and just winding down the day with you. Like anytime where I know, hey, it's just me and you and Asher if he's there, but even better if it's just me and you. No, I love our whole family. But those are the special times for me, around the dinner table, even cooking food, around the grill, stuff like that.
I agree. I think the same exact thing. My favorite moment of the day is when the day is complete and we're laying down for the night and we put on an episode of King of Queens that we've seen 1 million times, but
Yeah.
it's just you and me. And
Yeah.
the day's been busy. There's been a lot of demands, a lot of things going on, maybe a good day, maybe a challenging day. But at the end of it, there you are. You're still there. My most favorite person in the world is right there with me, and I wouldn't trade it for anything else in the world. So I
Yeah.
think all of these things are important, from the communication that builds the connection all the way down to remembering some of these fun memories for people. I think will help you just engage better in your personal relationships and your professional relationships and in our development altogether. But I do want to ask you something before we conclude. I want to throw this at you. I want to ask you just maybe a couple of fun questions. What's one thing about me today, after nearly 16 years of marriage, that still surprises you?
Oh, one is absolutely that every single day I wake up, you're still here. It's really insane. I think the dream is to be known to your core and someone still love you. And so it's really shocking every day that a human loves me. So that is one. And then really just every time a new little layer of you pops up, it's just, oh, like this podcast, seeing you blossom here, every little thing, there's, what in the world's going to happen over the next 50 years? Because we're both, that's just our MO, I guess, is to constantly be popping out new things. And so that's just really exciting for me still.
Well, I think I would have said the exact same thing. I think for me, it is that number one, you're still here. And then number two, ogres are like onions and ogres have layers. And every layer is just so good. Every single thing about you has been just amazing to watch every single time. And so every time something unfolds, I'm just always amazed that you get better and better and better. And so I'm just so thankful to be this far in 16 years later and still discovering such amazing things about you.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I didn't know what direction you were going with the ogre comment. So
Yeah, that's true. Well, Jen, thank you for being a part of this podcast and this very special episode for sure. Tell everybody how they can find you. Tell everybody how they can connect with you. I would love for people to be able to reach out and to be a part of just connecting with you.
Well, I do so many things and they're all over the place. So the easiest way is either email hello@jenmatthews.tv or Instagram. That's where I am the most. It's Jen K. Matthews. And that's where all the things are. That's where I'm at.
Well, Jen, thank you so much for being a part of this special episode, the very first guest of the Mind Your Business podcast.
Yes.
I appreciate you so very much.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
And I love you.
I love you.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this special episode of the Mind Your Business podcast. I hope that this brought value to your life. If it did, will you do me a favor? Will you like, subscribe, and share this with other people? I just want to add as much value to as many people as possible. I want to encourage you in all of the things that we talked about today to go apply these to your personal and your professional relationships, and we'll see you on the next Mind Your Business podcast.